they will be more pro-Putin's afterwards. So I see. So around 10 years after, I guess that we will have a proper one, Putin's generation. So this is words existing. Putin's generation. The president administration try to pretend that they pretended that they control a lot of young girls before, and this definition is existing in Russian narratives. But it was mostly fake, so there is no any control before. But after that, after 10 years from this more intensifying and intensifying period of time of state-related propaganda in schools, I really, it's really pity, but we will have the real Putin's generation. But after the invasion started, the Kremlin understood that the policy that they have and try to influence on the young generation is not enough, and try to increase this influence. And this is the reason why we see this movement from 2022, and this is the three new pillars which I would like to describe. The first pillar, of course, the Kremlin introduced more ideologically burdened disciplines inside of the schools. Yeah, not only in schools, but also in the higher education, in the universities. But schools is real on the fire now. So what we have now? So first of all, the Kremlin introduced the really new subject, the new lesson in the schools named "Разговоры о важном." In English, it's like conversation about important things. What is this subject? This subject, so the lessons, this is the lessons for every week for every Russian state schools, and the most Russian schools is state. The private schools is less than 1% in Russia. Every state Russian school should start the Monday from this lesson. And the lesson is about how Russia is a good country, what is deep Russian values, like conservative values, traditional families, and so on and so forth, and who are Russia's friends and not friends. So they try to promote mostly the state propaganda in the forms of the lesson, in the form of the lessons for the young generation. Yeah, it's started now implementing from the first grade in Russian schools and until the last one. Yeah. Also, they are thinking now to promote these lessons or disciplines not only to schools but to the kindergarten. So, and which is more important also that the program of these lessons they controlled on the federal level. So how it works? There is some website with these lessons when some responsible person, mostly from the federal level, publish the program for each lessons for each Monday, for every Monday, and the teacher who using these materials, need to be strict to these materials. Yeah. So also at the beginning of this implementing of this course, so in 2022 around the autumn, there are several some kind of auditors or curators who need to visit the lessons in schools and control tutors how they teach this lesson to the how the history textbook changed from 2022 with the new one with the previous one. So there are too many changes which can I describe. There are more, but I can describe two. The first one, they upload or add more material about current situation and current Russia under Putin with very patriotic way and describing Putin as a good national leader and so on and so forth. Also add some information about the so-called special military operation, the war in Ukraine. And what is interesting that the wording, I did the narrative analysis. So the wording when they describe in the special military operation, is exactly the same as they describe in this new textbook, the Second World War and the USSR participating in it. So why it is so similar? Because they use exactly the same definitions, like Nazis. So Nazis in Germany in the 40s in the previous century, and Nazis who is now according to the Kremlin, is in Kiev and promotes some ideas which is not so good for the Kremlin. Yeah. So the describing is very similar. Yeah, and the positioning, how they try to pose what is going on inside of the Russian current external policy, international affairs, is the prolongation of Soviet Union was doing when they participated in the Second World War. So this is the first change, and the second change is that now in the new textbook, this United textbook, they mostly based not on the reforms what they was implemented during this Soviet times or Russian Empire or Tsars period of time, yeah, but mostly on the wars and the rulers. And for example, they promote in a good way more Ivan the Terrible, who is one of the most bloody Russian Tsar, and also they changed the sentiments to Stalin. Not they are not covering him as a real good guy. Yeah, but the level of the authority of him, yes. So how he was pretend there in the textbook is much more positive than in the previous version of the textbook, and so on and so forth. So and several lessons in schools were reshaped in the way that the history which I described. So, for example, one more example I can give you. So there is the Soviet heritage lesson in Russian schools, named before as «Основы безопасности жизнедеятельности». In English, it sounds like the fundamentals of the life safety. Yeah, of the life safety. But they changed the name of the lessons and the content on these lessons. The new name is so the fundamentals of security of the fatherland. Yeah, so more weaponized thingy, and the content is now based not around so how you need to survive in the forest, for example. So this is the Soviet heritage. The Soviet pupils need to know how to survive in the forest. Yeah, but mostly how to use the Kalashnikov rifle, how to use gas mask. The second pillar of this more pro-ideologically controlled strategies to the youngers is that they revived the another Soviet practice like pioneers. So we have in the Soviet period of time the pioneers, and now they revive from the 2022 the version of these pioneers named Movement of the First. So this is the organization which try to control every extracurricular activities of the pupils after the school. You try to control them and try to seldomly, for now it's seldomly, yeah, seldomly to add some ideological stuff to the agenda. And this movement is directly controlled from the part of the present administration. So we have some department there which is responsible for the inner politics. And so the head of this department, Sergei Kiriyenko, is one of the guy who usually participated in the big events of this movement on the first, when they, for example, organize the camps in the Crimea, in the occupied Crimea, about some political stuff and so on and so forth. So this is the second pillar, how they try to control the extracurricular activities. And the third pillar is that the Kremlin, after 2022, of course, tries to prevent access and decrease the chance to access to any independent resources, including educational one. So, of course, we know that the Kremlin blocked all Russian independent media right after the invasion began, yeah? So, like, media which I affiliated with, Novaya Gazeta, or TV Rain, so all main our media was blocked. But also from this August this year, the Kremlin started the slowing, they call this slowing, not the blocking, but slowing of the YouTube. Yeah, and it works quite well. So, I mean, the slowing works quite well. So for now, we see the decreasing of the traffic of the Russian YouTube quite significantly. So why they are doing it? Because in the YouTube, there is a lot of independent content, including some educational ones. So, for example, there are several Russian NGOs, independent NGOs, which try to promote their own vision of the history courses. Yeah, we have a quite famous Russian ex-Russian teacher named Tamara Idelman, who do her own YouTube channel about history. Yeah, and because she is a history teacher in school, she was history teacher in school. Now she is need to be relocated and lived somewhere in Europe, I guess in Spain. Yeah, so she produced very, attached to the pupils' content about some history events, about the Ivan the Terrible, about Stalin and repression, but not on the, of course, not on the pro-Kremlin news, but on the alternative position. Yeah. So, and there are several type of this project, and for now, when we are discussing that YouTube is slowing, yeah, of course, the young generation can't fully use it to the additional education or to watch some these kind of videos, and they need to use another platforms. And what is another platforms is state promoted platforms without any of this kind of independent content. It's mostly attached to the VK, so this is a Russian social media, yeah, social network as alternative to the Facebook. So they mostly promote the VK video now, so without any of this content. And more or less, we saw that all other independent or para-independent, quasi-independent structures which try to produce some content, educational content, mostly blocked in Russia. So they're finding some new project, blocked it, and go to another project, observe it, and blocked again. So this is the very repetitive process. And this is the third pillar. So see, first of all, they introduced a lot of state-oriented propaganda in the school. Then they control extracurricular activities, more smart as far as I understand. And the third one, they try to limit the access to the independent information, yeah, and to replace it with the state one. Why the present administration introduced this really new wave of ideological stuff to youngers after 2022? Because I guess that they believed that the real competition or rival between the West and Russia is started. Yeah. So before it was of course in their mind too, in the Kremlin's mind, but it wasn't so public. Yeah, it wasn't so open. But after 2022, because the position they tried to present this war, not the war with Ukraine, but the war with the NATO and the West, as the idea also. Yeah. So they see that they need to control more population because we are in the beginning. The Russia is at the beginning of this contestant or competition or war with the West, and we will have. They believe that we will have more events like that. Yeah, and during the war period of time, you need to be assured that the young generation is on your side too. But we saw it previously during the Navalny's protest, for example, in 2021, before the war, or early Navalny's protest, like 2015, 2016. Yeah, so that a lot of young, so the main generation who participate in this protest is the young generation. Yeah, and the Kremlin understand that they they failed with them and try to be more persuasive. Maybe not for current youngers, for youngers, I mean from 20s to 30s, not this generation, but for more young people. So as far as I describes from the people who now their 10s or under 10s, also for that generation.